Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from Vital MX, and this is our 2022 450 roundtable for our shootout. We're going to break these videos up. If you're watching this intro, this might be for the Honda, the Cowie, the Suzuki, the Yamaha, etc. But we have one on each bike because, man, they would be too long to sit down and play through at once. So whatever bike one you're about to watch, check it out. And if you want, check out the others as well to learn everything from this year's shootout. So we'll start off with the winner, the Yamaha YZ450F. Start to my left here. Jacob, what did you think, and what did you personally rank it as well?
So I had the Yamaha as second for me. We had Glen Helen the first day, and then we rode a private sand track in the hills because we got so much rain. And the reason I ranked the Yamaha second for me is not so much on the second day. I didn't feel comfortable with the bike. I couldn't get it to work underneath me the way I wanted it to. It felt a little bit heavy the second day on a more technical, tight track for me. But also the reason why I do rank it so high is because of the adjustability reasons. You can tune the map. The forks are really great out of the box. The power is obviously incredible. And I rode, out of the total of 2 days, 5 different maps, and I didn't really mind any of them. I really liked actually all of them. It just depended on which one I liked right that second. So that was why the Yamaha for me was second. The gas was incredible, but yeah, the Yamaha ranked second for me.
So for me, it was actually my winner. I think this is the first year in a while for the 450 I have ranked at number one. I'll admit I usually bleed pretty heavy green, but coming into it, this is the heaviest I've ever been in a shootout, about 30 pounds over normal. So it did change a little bit of my thoughts on a few things. I will admit that put a few anchors in a few bikes, but it comes back to what we said, adjustability. Big item is track toughness, which a lot of people wonder, what that term means. A lot of test riders use that to explain like how easy it is to set up a bike track to track, how well it varies. And that's saying, like you had mentioned, I thought the bike shined at Glen Helen tremendously for me. Yes, the sand track, it was a little bit tougher in some of the tire sections, but what I liked, again, is just how adjustable the bike was. I ran two, I would call it different bike balance setups. I ran their standard fork height at, I think it was like 103 sag, 102 sag that they recommend. And then I ran a setup both days at 2 separate times, a little bit lower setup to make it a little bit more stable. I ran 5 millimeters extra sag in the back at Stephen Torkowski's recommendation, and went down 2 millimeters on the fork, kind of brought the bike down a little bit. For that bike balance, like both tracks, front end was very planted, kind of, like I said, it brought the bike out a little bit more, but brought all the weight down and made it a bit more stable for me. Easy to ride at the rough sand track. Like I felt like I could stay loose on the bike because I just felt like it was so stable. I did have to work it a little bit more in the tight corners, but at GH, between the suspension, the stability, and the power, I just felt like I didn't have to try that hard in a lot of sections. And then to what you said, Jacob, is the power map. I think I tried 4 different, and same thing is, a lot of the bikes have the buns and it makes a little bit of a difference, but their power tuner, how drastic of a change you can make to that engine, went from the base map where I don't want to say the bike wanted to loop out, but I don't think I ever opened the throttle past 70% in a lot of places. I ran a very controlled map that reminded me of maybe more of the Cowie, the Suzuki, where it was actually I almost want to call it hesitation. It was still connected, but I could get, if I wanted to roll it on, it was a little bit mellower, but if I wanted to grab a handful, I could get to jump over stuff in the corner, where the stock map drives so well. If I tried to grab a handful, the bike would just go forward like a rocket ship. Ran some maps that were more free roll feel. I was just super impressed that, like I said, I liked all of them for different reasons. The bike ergos are still a little odd to me. The bike comes stock with the handlebars in the front position. I got these little T-Rex arms. That doesn't freaking work for me whatsoever.
I don't like it either in the front. I'm tall. Every time I've ridden one of those Yamahas and they've set them forward, I always got to go back. Yeah. Back position, but forward mount.
Same. Once I bring it back to there, I'm good. A lot of people talk about the width of the Yamaha. I've measured it a bunch of times. The radiator shroud is actually skinnier most bikes. I think from a visual standpoint, because it wraps all the way over the top, those gaps over the radiators, your mind puts different stuff. I think around where the fuel tank is in the center feels a little bit thicker than some of the bikes, but I like the ergonomic grip of it, like how I feel standing, how my legs contact the bike. I have great control, great foot feel, the leg feel up the bike. Once the bars are set back, my only real negative with the ergos, it's like the one item I want to immediately change with the bike, even though I'm not that tall, I still want lower pegs on the bike because it has such a tight peg to seat height. You see a lot of guys go to a taller seat on because you're just trying to get it where you don't feel like your knees are in your chest. So it sounds like a big complaint. It's like I said, it's a couple little things I still think on ergos, but it's so hard to outweigh how good the engine is, how good the suspension is. Yeah, the chassis isn't like the sharpest handling thing on the Facer, but it's super well balanced bikes. You can front steer it, you can rear steer it, but once I found something I'm happy with on that bike, I know I can go ride 6 different tracks and not touch anything. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's huge to me because I feel like some bikes do not do that very well.
Number one for me with I ranked the Yamaha first as well. It was versatility. The fact that you can not only, it almost feels like you get multiple bikes with the Yamaha, the amount of, you know, power change you can make with the tuner amp. And then, so I rode it first at Glen Helen, and it was really comfortable for me. And then later in the day, I rode it last at Glen Helen as well, and it was, you know, way more rough. And basically, I asked Steve at Yamaha, I'm like, hey, I just kind of want to slow everything down, or it just seems pretty rough. And then he goes, yeah, I got something to try, and it was the lowering as well. You combine the versatility of the power, and then also the versatility of the chassis, and it's like, you could take it anywhere. Like you said, like any track, it feels really comfortable for me. And I think it's also telling that, you know, fast guys and, you know, more vet speed guys like me can really make it work. The only thing that I had is a couple of the other bikes might feel a little bit lighter, you know, just kind of flickability wise, but handling was great suspension, and, you know, great power.
I got a question actually for all you guys. I think about this with weight. So the way I've always tried to determine is like you have the KTM Husky gas gases. They're physically extremely light on the scale. Then you have the Yamaha is actually one of the heaviest next to the Suzuki. I always think of the difference in the tracks we ride West Coast. When you have a lot of hard pack tracks, as long as the engine feels good, like roll character's good, I tend to feel like bikes that are heavier than they are feel light. But I feel like when you ride that sand track and you're physically actually having to pull on the bike, you feel a bit of that difference. Would you guys, like, do you notice a difference between the Yamaha and, say, the gas KTMs on these different, depending on the track surfaces, the weight?
I would have to say definitely. At Glen Helen, like you said, you have a lot of momentum, a lot of roll speed. The bike is so stable at high speeds. I mean, if there's not a rut, if it's pretty flat and choppy, I could not believe how well that bike just tracked to the ground. So that's why at Glen Helen it was pretty high compared to the rest of the bikes. But when you got to the sand track, yes, I was trying to wheel tap stuff. I was trying to double things, and I felt like I was really trying to muscle the motorcycle underneath me to where, like you said, if you get to a tighter, kind of rougher track where you want to play around with things, the power was there to play around with. But that's the only reason I felt the weight at the second track.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree a little bit just with the power. I felt like even at the sand track, the power made the bike feel lighter, because with that snap, I was able to maybe shift my weight a little bit farther back and still be able to pop it over, you know, different sections and stuff like that.
Making the bike do more of the work.
Yeah. I wasn't physically having to lift up. I would just kind of preload a jump or something and then blip the throttle. And that power is just so instantaneous. It just lifts the bike up.
For me, the sand track, the Yamaha shined on the uphill rollers, the technical sections where you had to keep turning and going up. It just stayed so stable and planted that when you got into the tighter, sandier sections, it felt heavier because it was cornering it, and then when you got into the sand, it just felt like it wanted to dig a little bit. It didn't feel as light, and that's honestly when we get later to the gas. At that sand track, the gas, which I didn't like at Glen Helen, seemed to stand out so good at that sand track.
And where did you rank the Yamaha?
The Yamaha I ranked first.
Oh, okay.
And again, the Glen Helen, it doesn't matter what you hit. It's just so stable, so planted. On bikes you would cringe on, as you mentioned, that one just tracks right through it, and it doesn't matter where you land, what you're going to hit, what cross ruts, what chop, it just goes right through it.
The Yamaha, what was interesting was that even though it didn't have that super plush feeling that like the gas did, it still was crazy predictable. Like no matter what happened, I knew what was coming on the YZ.
That's the last thing I'll leave for the Yamaha is kind of what you just said is predictable. That's why I was saying, like, whether you call it predictable or not have to think about, that was the biggest thing for me on the Yamaha. That either track is just, if it was tougher in places to ride or easier to ride, I just felt like I knew exactly what it was going to do all the time, which took a lot off me, like mentally taxing wise, to just enjoy the process of motoing, I guess.
It is the best of track toughness, as you mentioned. It doesn't matter what sections of the track, conditions, and 5 different tracks, you could probably not even touch the clickers and have more fun than some of the other bikes where it has to be precise to be a good feeling.
Did anybody actually turn a clicker more than 2 clicks on the Yamaha?
No.
Nope.
I was blown away how good the fork was. Absolutely blown away. I asked the Yamaha guys, I'm like, you guys, this is phenomenal. This is phenomenal.
I didn't touch neither track. I did a little bit of a shock change one time. I did not touch the fork clicker here today. I had no reason to.
It's actually been a top one for me for the last few years.
Which I will say is a tough one because you're a diehard. Let's put it this way. This is one of the most diehard Honda people I've ever met. I don't think he's bought anything other than a Honda since 02.
01 was my last Yamaha.
And every year I ask this guy if he had to ride one, because our rule of show is like what I end it with is, we ride them bone stock. We do what's available off the dealership floor. If you had to buy one and ride it for the whole year as is, every year you may go buy a Honda because you've got all these things you modify and do to it. But if I challenge you with the question, you end up picking the Yamaha.
Well, the funny thing is I'm not a racer. I just ride for fun. I'm a professional practicer. So I just ride for fun. And every year I'm tempted to go buy the Yamaha, but I just don't. I like the nimbleness of the Honda, the flickability of it, the play riding aspect of it. The Yamaha, if I was just hammering out motos, I think I would be a lot faster on a Yamaha. But I'm not really out for speed. I'm just out to have a good time. And if I can't whip it as far as I can and return it like I can on Honda, it's not worth it to me.
Again, what we talk about is Shootout. Winner is not always Purdue best bike, and that's information that I think plays into why these things are important to listen to and why there's actually more than just whoever took the top spot. Thank you guys all for tuning in and listening to this. Like I said, that's why we do all this. There's a lot of information on each bike here. You can break it down, listen to the bike you're interested in, maybe even ones that you've been on the fence about, go through everything we said. Like I said, we put these out in multiple formats. If you're here, you've probably watched the short and sweet version we already did that was a lot quicker than this. And then if you want to learn more, me and Sean have talked about a lot about horsepower, weights, a lot of those figures. We have an article up on the website you can check out. Should be a link in the bio below. If you're the old school guy and you just want to read all this and not listen to us talk forever on YouTube, that route also works as well. But we'll be kicking off 250 Shootout here in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for more. And thanks for listening.